Moving ahead, our next speaker is going to speak about creating a culture of inclusion, best practices for implementing diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. Mr. Amit Chincholikar had extensive hands-on experience in developing and delivering a human resource strategy. Global experience across several HR verticals, strong business focus, and collaborative mindset. He interested working in global virtual organizations, footprint optimization, and workflow process design. Rewards and benefits, diversity and inclusion advocate. HR and startup, business incubation enthusiast. Everybody, please welcome on stage Mr. Amit Chincholikar, Global CHRO, Yokohama, off-highway tires. Can we have a huge round of applause, everybody? Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. So, at some point in time, I was told that the average attention span of a human being when you sit in a session from start, at any given point in time is 40 minutes. This was a professor who told me this when I was in college. Of course, he would then take lectures that lasted 2 hours. That's a separate story. So I know we are past 40 minutes since morning. So, and I do know that I probably stand between you and tea, which is, and I worked for a tea company in my previous avatar. So I know how important tea is, not just for your well-being, but for the existence of tea companies. So I'll try and keep this short. And in the interest of diversity, there's one key change that you'll see between what you've seen so far and what you will see now, which is, I don't have a single slide, right? And in the interest of inclusion, I'll build on some wonderful things that we've already heard from 3 speakers, and do this as a little bit of a conversation now, right? On the whole concept of creating a culture of inclusion. So, a quick show of hands, how many people in the room are married? Okay. Happily married? No, sorry, that's not a question to ask. Okay, folks, married folks, anyone done some kind of significant white goods, 2-wheeler, 4-wheeler purchase recently? Anyone's bought a, yeah, okay, yes ma'am, what did you purchase? You bought a car, okay. Now, I'm going to create a hypothesis around how the story of the car purchase went, and tell me whether it's right or wrong. I don't know her, by the way, yeah, so this is not a setup. So you would have identified, or you and your family would have identified and shortlisted a vehicle. I'm imagining that your spouse would have been probably a little more enthusiastic than you were. You would have gone to the showroom, had a look. The reason why you were looking for a vehicle and your spouse was looking for a vehicle are probably different. What your spouse was looking for is color, design, speed, etc. What you're looking for is safety, comfort, mileage, color maybe, and how it looks, etc. Is that how it went? Broadly, the discussion? Yeah? Finally, whose decision prevailed when you purchased the vehicle? I'm sorry? Husbands. Yeah? Now the reason why we're talking of this example is this. When you get married, that is diversity. But when the spouse gets involved in a decision that you have to take to finally make a decision happen, ladies and gentlemen, that is inclusion. And what happens very often is we mistake one for the other, right? We use the words interchangeably, diversity, inclusion, diversity, inclusion. Please remember, diversity is about counting the numbers. And we've seen a lot of that, right? Everyone puts out targets, everyone puts out numbers, everyone puts out. Inclusion is actually about making the numbers count, right? So if you're talking about inclusion and if you want to make the numbers count, I think there was an outstanding last slide that we saw from the previous presentation that I just want to pick up from. When you're talking of inclusion, or for that matter, anything you want to do, In my view, there are three questions we need to ask ourselves. Whatever we are attempting, it should solve some problem, right? It should either solve a talent problem, it should solve a business problem, or it should solve a global societal problem. If any initiative that we want to do as HR in particular doesn't meet any of these criteria, there is no point doing it. For the simple reason that at the end of the day, every company, promoter or otherwise, is answerable to a shareholder. And the shareholder wants to know what is it that you're doing to be able to maximize their investment. Basically, in that context, what is it that you're doing to solve one of these three problems? Now look at the context of inclusion from these three. Solving a talent problem. And we'll talk of examples, right? Just, since the whole idea was look at best practices. Let's look at examples. We've got a lot of return to work programs now, right? Particularly for women. Return back from maternity, return back from, after taking a career break, trailing spouse, etc. A lot of those come in, right? Who was the pioneer in starting these programs in India? Any idea? It was the Tata Group, right? 2008, when a program called SKIP was launched, the second career internship program, that said that women who have been on a career break, who want to come back to the workforce and kind of get involved, in working, outstanding success program. But it was not because it was done to be able to just get the women back. That's not the primary objective of the program. It was solving a talent problem. The talent problem was, here is a vacuum that is being created because there are enormously qualified, competent women who are out there who've had to take a career break for personal reasons, trailing spouse, kids growing up, kids in 10th standard, 12th standard. I don't know why they're still so important as exams, as we'll all eventually find out, but that's a maybe conversation for another time. So when that happened, right, suddenly, because women found themselves out of a job, and we were still at that point in time in the era of what we've heard as permanent employment, here was a pioneering idea, right? That said, can we experiment with flexibility? Can we experiment with coming back to sea? And then you create an infrastructure to make that program happen. So the key, ladies and gentlemen, is not to start a program for the sake of starting a program. It has got to solve a problem. Right? So that was one thing that happened to solve a business problem. Solve a talent problem. Let's think of a business problem. Yeah? Anybody here from FMCG? Consumer products? See, consumer products, you live and die by distribution, right? Your product should be available. And there's a reason why it's called fast moving, right? Tea, sugar, pulses, baby wipes, etc. All of these things. And if you look at who's the key decision maker in buying a lot of these things. So who makes the decision in terms of what tea comes into your house, what sugar comes into your house, which dal is used? There are very few men who will dare to raise their hands, right? Extremely unlikely. So the woman is the key decision maker, right, in that. Which means, and actually, if you think of it, 80% of consumer decisions in the world are either taken by or significantly influenced by women. So, ma'am, next time when you buy your next car, you should try to get to the 80% rather than staying in the 20%. But the fact is that if this is the constitution that's going to be taking the key decisions, you need to have more of them on the business side in marketing, right? Hence the whole drive by a company called HUL to say, I need to have more women in marketing. But by the way, you can't do marketing if you haven't done sales, particularly in FMCG, right? You have got to do sales. Because large part of India, and I'm just taking India examples right now, is not about Delhi, Mumbai, Calcutta, Chennai. It is about Rehala, Behala, Shambhupura. That's where India resides, right? 70% of India resides there. They are the ones who are consuming our product. Which means if you hire a woman whom you want to be eventually a marketing manager, Then if this woman has to go out and be in these markets to understand distributors, sellers, etc., how does it happen? You need to make the environment for the woman to succeed in that situation. So one of the biggest projects that someone like HUL did, right, to drive the culture of inclusion was ensuring that when you go to a distributor anywhere, if you're an HUL distributor, one of the mandates that they gave, can you imagine what it is? If you want to become a distributor for HUL, you must have a woman's toilet in your premises. Because that's where the woman area sales manager will come in. This is solving a business problem, right? Wherein you're saying that there is genuinely a challenge, and that's where when organizations take views to be able to solve something that's important, automatically you will find the buy-in to make something like that happen is significantly higher, right? Imagine going to your CFO, and finance guys and HR guys are best friends, right? Imagine going to your CFO and saying, I need a capital budget because I need to construct toilets at every distributor. What do you think his answer is going to be, or her answer is going to be? But go back and say, I'm solving a business problem because otherwise my women executives can't travel. I want to attract the best, by the way, and then the only way in which I can do that is by building this. You've automatically solved a business problem, creating a culture of inclusion. Because now, your CFO is supportive of the idea, irrespective of whether he or she supports diversity as a concept or not, because it's solving a business problem. It's a very important thing to think about, right? The third thing is to see whether you're solving a societal problem, right, that will make life easier for times to come. Now, this is a little hard to fathom, but if some of you are aware of this whole concept of that happened in the US called Black Lives Matter, right? Or, at some point in time, there was a campaign. In fact, there was I think, Supreme Court ruling in the US that said that in certain states, you cannot, I think they banned abortions. They said that the state will take a view on whether abortions can take place or not. And a lot of companies stepped in at that point in time to say that if they are banned in certain states, we will ensure that any of our employees who want to go to another part of the country to get an abortion, because getting an abortion is the right of a woman, right? How can you take that right away through a constitutional judgment? So therefore, if women need to go to another state, take time to rest and recuperate, and take care of medical expenses, and take paid leave, we will support it as a company. Now bear in mind, this is in a country like the US, where they have zero maternity leave prescribed by law. So this, when you're taking a stance, right, you're taking a stance because you want to bring about a societal change in the interest of inclusion. So when organizations think of making changes of this nature or going down this path, it's very important to understand what are the criteria that you're applying. Is it going to solve a business problem? Is it going to solve a talent problem? Is it going to solve a societal problem at large? So for example, if you look at Godrej, right? Now, if you look at the LGBTQ community, you will typically find that in medical insurance policies, right, which companies provide, normally same-sex domestic partners, right, are not covered in India because, same-sex marriages are not legalized. Godrej went one step further and said that if you have a same-sex domestic partner, we will cover them under a private insurance that we have. Now that's a big step, right? It's a massive step towards inclusion because you're saying, I respect the choice that you make in terms of preference and I'm willing to support it. So all I'm saying is that best practices that you see as outcomes in terms of what a lot of companies do is a result of some deep thinking that goes in when they apply their mind to say, what is it that we're trying to solve for? Now, very quickly, therefore, what is it that one can do? And we've just seen, a lot of thought in terms of how is it that you can manage and how is it that you can do these things. I think there are 3 key steps, right? What is it that you're doing to be able to attract best talent? Yeah. Now, why is it important to attract best talent? Because unlike 20 years ago, if you go to significant engineering campuses or MBA campuses, women are beating the crap out of men. Right? I mean, you have significantly more women now in campuses for engineering. Every topper, IIT, entrance exams, IAS, IPS, MBA entrances. So women are simply beating the crap out of men. You must recognize that. Therefore, you have to find ways to stay relevant as a talent magnet. You're not doing this out of charity for women. You're doing it because if you have to attract the best talent, you have to stay relevant to this. Again, it's very important to understand you're not doing this as part of CSR. CSR has its own place and its relevance, right? But you're doing this because you're solving a talent problem. So when you're looking at attracting, the biggest mistake that organizations make is to deal with this in the form of quotas, which is, I will put a number and say 25% should be women. When I'm going to campus, with 50, I have a target out of 50, I will select 30 women. Why? Right? If your approach is, I will select the best talent that's available there, and there are more women there on campus than men, you will end up doing it automatically. So you've got to be a little careful in terms of how you position your hiring strategy when you're going out. There's one very big word that we talked about called flexibility. And it's a misnomer to believe that it's the minority groups that need more flexibility. It is actually not true. We all need flexibility. When I go home late from work as a man, right, and I'm not spending enough time, let's say, with my kids, I am choosing to have that lack of flexibility because something is more important to me than my family. So everyone needs flexibility. So no one does anyone a favor if people seek flexibility, right? So if one says, women need more flexibility or minority groups need more flexibility, it is a complete misnomer. The challenge is that the subject is such that it is based on, we heard that a little bit around what we call as bias, because there are a deeply rooted set of beliefs that we have. Like, for example, the whole concept of the trailing spouse. The trailing spouse, by definition, is always assumed to be a woman. Now, for example, I have a colleague in my previous organization whose wife has got a fantastic job in the UK, right? And he's happy to go as the trailing spouse. Now, if we are able to get to cultures of that nature, wherein we are willing to release our male colleagues when they need to make a move, as opposed to having to accommodate women when you move, then you are creating a culture of inclusion. Yeah, so, there is a lot that we can do in terms of metrics, in terms of numbers, in terms of processes, but we've got to realize fundamentally why is it that we want to make certain changes, right? And why is it that it works? The one final thought I want to leave you with is the concept of what I call as commitment versus compliance. Most of us are driven by a compliance mindset. And let me give you an example. Before the Maternity Benefit Act in India was changed, right? 3 years ago. Do you know what the amount of maternity that was offered in India? 12 weeks, right? Everyone studied Maternity Benefit Act 1948, right? Then it was changed to, right? It was made 26 weeks from 12 weeks. Why was it made 6 months? Why not 4 months? Why not 8 months? Why not 1 year? Is there a reason why it is 6 months? Did we just pick a number and say 6 is good? There actually is a reason behind this. And I was incredibly privileged to be part of the Tata group when this story unfolded. Before the government came up with this change, the Tata group had been thinking about, because there was a lot of attrition that was happening at that level, because women said they need, to take time off. We said, take all the flexibility you need, do all of that, etc. Yet it was not solving the problem, right? So we went back and spoke to the British Nurses Association. We went back and spoke to the American Physicians Association. We spoke to gynecologists and pediatricians in India. What they told us is simple. They said the first 6 months is the most important from a child development perspective, because it is until that time that a child is more or less completely dependent on mother's milk. And therefore, for the first 6 months, constant contact or constant reassurance to the child is a must to make sure that the child's development takes place appropriately from a nutrition and physical, mental perspective. That's how the number of 6 months was evolved. The government then, I'm not saying they took cue, but the government followed, but the Tata Group had actually done this before. Now, the reason why I'm giving this example is, we can either stay in the mindset of what I said as compliance, right? 12 weeks, that is what is important. A mindset of commitment towards inclusion is saying, what is the right thing to do? Can we step back and figure out, is this really what is the most important thing from our perspective, right? Basically, this is like what I say, there are two ways of looking at this, right? One is when you're waiting at a traffic light, right? Which is red, and there is no one else watching. If you wait there, that is commitment. If you are there because there is a cop waiting on the other side of the road, or there is a camera that's watching you, that is compliance. So you've got to ask that question, yeah? My final point on inclusion that I'd like to make, please remember that the journey towards inclusion, towards making it happen, is like weight loss. Now, don't judge me. I am not on that journey yet. So don't judge me. But the reason why I say that is, you can either go into it very quickly, right? And then slowly turn back to the way you used to be. Or you can do this in steps, identify milestones, take your time, recognize that the journey is just as important as the destination. Understand that it will take time. But good things always get better only when you invest time in them. That's my time, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much. Any questions? Happy to take them. Otherwise, don't wish to stand between you and tea. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and I would request you to kindly please stay on the stage. It was indeed a very uplifting session. Thank you so much, sir. I would request Mr. Pramit Sen, CHRO NSDL, to kindly join us on the stage and felicitate Mr. Amit Chincholikar.